In this video, we're going to be talking about how we can analyze the relationship between the dependent and independent variable using graphs, tables, and equations. Example 1 says the temperature was 6 degrees at 8 a.m. and increased 2 degrees each hour for 6 hours. What was the temperature after 6 hours? So I'm going to go ahead and start by writing an equation here. So I know that the temperature, it started at 6 degrees, so I'm going to put a 6 here because that's our starting point. And then we know that it then increases. So we have two keywords here, and then also increase. I know both of those, I can use my plus sign. It increased 2 degrees each hour. So every single hour it is increasing 2 degrees. So if something's happening at each hour, I know it's going to be multiplication. So I'm going to put an H here for hours. So 2 times H, remember you can always also write multiplication with a little dot here. I like to put the number next to the variable. It just looks a little cleaner for me. So I know that it starts at 6 degrees. It's increasing 2 degrees every hour. And this is going to equal our temperature after a certain amount of hours. So this is the equation that I'm going to be using. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to look at my table here, and just like with substitution that we talked about earlier in this topic, I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to substitute in all of these values for H to figure out what my temperature is. So the first value I have is 0. Now I can go ahead and plug that in, or I can just say when we started, it was 6 degrees. Okay, that's my starting point. The next is 2 hours. What happens if 2 hours goes by? So I know my 6 and my plus sign are staying the same. Instead of 2 times H, I'm going to be doing 2 times 2. Now with PEMDAS, I need to do multiplication before I can do addition. So 2 times 2 is 4. And then I can go ahead and add, and that's going to get me a total of 10. So after 2 hours, my temperature is at 10 degrees. Next is after 4 hours. So I have my initial starting point of 6 degrees, then I'm adding 2. Instead of times H, I'm timesing it by 4. PEMDAS, I do multiplication first. 2 times 4 is 8, and now I can add my 6. So then we can do 6 plus 8, which is 14. So after 4 hours, my temperature is now at 14 degrees. And last but not least, if I let 6 hours go by, where would I be? 6 times 2 is 12. Add my 6, which is going to get me 18. So after 6 hours, my temperature is now at 18 degrees. So looking at this right here, I want you guys to think about what would be my independent variable and which would be my dependent variable. So in this case, do the hours depend on the temperature, or does the temperature depend on how many hours pass? So in this case, the independent variable is my hours. That is not being impacted by anything. But the temperature is being impacted by how many hours goes by. So the temperature is what's being impacted here. So the next part of this lesson is going to actually be plotting these points on a graph so that I can see the relationship between my independent and dependent variable. Now, with graphing, we always want to run before we walk. I'm sorry, not run before we jump. Okay, I'm going to jump a lot higher if I run first. Running, we go left to right. So we always want to go left or right before we go up or down. So for example, my first point here, I have 0, 6. Okay, so 0, 6. That means that I'm going left or right 0. I cannot go left or right 0, so my dot is going to stay right here at 0. Then After I go left or right, I'm not going to go up or down. I'm going to go up or down 6. In this case, I'm going up to 6, and I see 6 right here. So that is my first point. I'm going to go ahead and erase my markings right here so I can just see my point. My next point, I'm going to change my color so you guys can see better, is 210. So we go left or right first. Left or right, I'm going to go to 2. And then up or down, I'm going up 10. My next point is at 414. So I need to go over 4 and then up to 14. And my last point is 6 and 18. So I need to go over 6 and then all the way up to 18. Oops, that's going to erase my point there. I can, if I want to, connect these dots with a little line. So this is showing how my temperature is being increased. So as my hours are going up, you guys can see my temperature is increasing as well. All right, example 2, the Fudd family is attending a family reunion. They plan to rent a car from the ABC car rental company. Let M represent the number of miles the family will drive. Let C represent the cost for renting a car. Write an equation to represent the scenario. So I know I'm going to put my cost after my equal sign because I need to figure out how much this whole excursion with renting my car is going to cost me. So I know my weekend special, it says $50 plus 0.2 or 20 cents per mile. So I know I have to pay right when I walk in the rental place, I have to pay $50. And then on top of that, I also have to spend or pay 20 cents every single mile. And since I don't know how many miles I'm going to drive, I'm going to put a variable of M to show that I am going to multiply however many miles I drive. I'm going to multiply that by 20 cents to figure out my total cost. So in this case, what would my independent variable be and what would my dependent variable be? So my independent variable is going to be the miles that I drive. And my dependent variable is going to be the cost, because in this case, my cost depends on how many miles I drive. Last one, complete the table and graph to show the relationship between the variables in the equation. D equals 5 plus 5t. We know that 5t is saying to multiply. This is like saying 5 times t. So 5 plus 5 times t, I have my equation down here as well, and I'm going to plug in these numbers for t. So first, if I were to plug in instead of 5 times t, if I do 5 times 0, what would I get? 5 times 0 is 0, and I add on my 5, so my distance would be 5 there. For 2, instead of 5 times t, I'm going to do 5 times 2. 5 times 2 is 10, plus 5 is going to be 15. And now let's pick a number. Let's say, what if our t is 4? So instead of 5 times t, I'm going to do 5 times 4. 5 times 4 is 20, plus 5, I'm going to get 25. So now that I have my table filled out here, I'm going to go ahead and plot these on my graph. So my first one is 0, 5. Remember, you go left or right first. 0, I can't go left or right, so I'm going to keep it right here. And I'm going to go up to 5 So my first point is right here. My next one is 2 and 15, so go over 2 and then go up to 15. My next one is 425. I want to go over to 4 all the way up to 25. So this is showing me that as my time goes up, my distance goes up too. So that means that D is going to be my dependent variable because it depends on how much time has gone by.